Here we delve into those topics that challenge us to think outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our weird realities.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight on Weird Awakenings, here with Cecil and Stephen. Tully may be joining us a little bit, and Miss Hadley's not feeling real well tonight, so she's going to take the night off. Tonight, we are talking about the Akashic Records. For those who have never heard of this, it's the concept that there is a place in the universe I like to compare it to like a supercomputer. It has all of the information that every person has ever had, will have, is having right now. There's no judgment. It is just, these are the things going on. These are the things that could happen. And you can use them to deal with past life trauma, this lifetime trauma. There's just information there for anyone who can access it. So, guys, how much do you know about this before we jumped into it?
Very little.
Yeah.
I tried to read about it and my mind started hurting. Because I was like, so there's a library, but you have to like meditate and travel on the astral plane to get there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was how Edgar Casey got to it. Is he would basically somehow he was able to put himself in some kind of a light sleep or trance or something, and he was able to access the Akashic records.
Mm-hmm.
He shared a lot of information.
Yeah, that's actually where I first heard about it from, was when I discovered Casey back in the 80s, I guess, something like that. Yeah, because he was one of the people who had done enough research in areas like past lives and the Akashic records and everything that he was published and you could find work on. Even in my little town that I grew up in, had a couple of Edgar Casey books. So, yeah, it was wild.
And the thing about Edgar Casey is he was actually a little bit upset about it whenever he found what he was actually doing. Whenever he would go to France and people would ask him questions and he would share all this information, because that was something that he wasn't sure. He was pretty devout in his faith, with
Yes.
Christianity, and it was upsetting to him when he first discovered this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I'm sorry, but at the same time, it's just like you were talking about. It's a massive computer. I've even heard people suggest before, with our brains, maybe we're not actually storing all the information in our brains. We're just using our brains to access the information that's actually out there.
Mm-hmm. And that makes complete sense. And you always hear about how little of our brains we use,
Mm-hmm.
but how much information is there that we just haven't tapped into.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where a lot of, of course, there are the super smart people, who, access parts of their brain that the average person doesn't. But I think that that's where, other than human abilities come from, empathy. I just think there's a lot that's there that some people can tap into and everything. Right. Yep. Hey, Landa. Hi, Mike.
Landa, Mike. Hello.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with you. For some reason, I think this right here kind of tends to run in families.
Mm-hmm.
from my experience, or what limited knowledge I have of it.
Right.
I don't have a whole lot of knowledge at all. I know that Madame Blavatsky was one of the earliest people to discover it or whatever in Tibet.
Mm-hmm.
And Madame Blavatsky is one of those people that always, she was a shady individual. So I kind of stay away from her, kind of like Alistair in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I start hearing him talk, I kind of just turn it off.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Carrie. Well, in Blavatsky, there's a school over in the islands, like the Isle of Wight or one of those up in the northern part of the Scottish Sea, that she was part of one of the original founders of, called the Church of Light or something. I forget exactly what the name of it was, but I actually came close when I was younger to joining because they touched on a lot of the things like that I had been, researching and, really starting to feel, had validity. And again, 30 years ago, you couldn't find as much of this stuff. It was the internet was still a baby, or you paid for it by the minute, which was crazy.
I forget the name of that church too. I know it was Theosophacy.
Yeah. Hey, Tully. Yes.
Hello, Tully.
I don't think he can hear us. Make a face at him.
Did you ever get over the diarrhea spell there? I heard you was painting bowls all week. Can you hear me?
Evidently not.
We're going back to what we were talking about.
That is just wrong.
If your friends can't insult you, who can? But
speaking of painting the bowl before we get started, I call this blowout. Anybody wants any of that, hit me up.
Yes. And for the record, Cecil, this is something that I didn't even think about it until earlier today. That online learning center called Udemy, I think that's how it's pronounced. Udemy, something like that. Udemy. They actually have a short class that is free on accessing the Akashic records.
I'd really love to learn how to do it, but my issue is I just don't think I'm spiritual enough. Like, I like to think that I'm a spiritual type person. I got some kind of faith and everything, but as far as like being that spiritual, I don't think I could ever transcend it. I'm just too negative of a human being.
Tully.
Can you hear us now?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm livid with having to deal with all this stuff. I had to restart again.
Oh, it's okay.
Man.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you guys. It has been an exhaustive day for me. I'll tell you all about it afterwards.
I'm sorry. It's been Friday. But
Yeah.
Cecil, I'll be honest with you. I really don't think spirituality or lack thereof has a lot to do with being able to access. I think that on the other hand, a lot of times being able to still your mind and focus can be a problem.
Now, I have been reading about Asawaga or whatever.
Yep.
Ashwagandha.
That drug that everybody's doing.
Oh, ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. I've been reading about the trips from that, and it seems like it's almost a shortcut to this library.
The same
Like
with DMT.
almost everybody that comes out of it has like some kind of enlightenment.
Okay,
and some kind of
March
new knowledge.
of 2024, when we all get together, we're going to have to do the ayahuasca.
Oh, God. What did I walk into?
I don't need to do that.
We're trying to figure out how to get go ahead, Stephen.
Not everybody has a good report after seeing things from the spirit world.
That is very true.
That is a great
very true. But I would try. I know me. I would try it one time. And
I've been on the different realms several times. Sometimes it's not so fun.
Well, I can't find the exact. I said ashwagandha, but it could be Wakanda too. I guess
It could be.
I think ashwagandha is what people take to make them calm, like CBD or
yeah,
whatever.
it's like a Chinese herb.
But speaking of ayahuasca, there was a really good documentary. I cannot remember the name of it. It might be called The Medicine. But it explores, I would say 85 to 90% of the people who go to Florida to seek out ayahuasca have been through something super traumatic in their life. Like this lady lost her husband and like 3 kids. They were all killed in a car wreck and she came out alive. And she said that she had everything planned out. She's going to kill herself. And someone who knew about the effects of ayahuasca told her to go there, and she did it. And she's like, "Don't get me wrong, I still bear the loss of my family every single day. But if you ask me today, would I want to kill myself after the experience that I had and what I saw when I was on it, the answer is going to be no."
Now I've got a question about that. Now this might be morbid, but did she also get the check after the ayahuasca or whatever?
Oh, I have no idea. But it's people
Because
like that.
I know that a
People,
lot of times, like, people get injured and stuff, but after they get that settlement check, they're miraculously healed. Kind of
well,
like Dr. CB got a hold of them or something.
that documentary, that's literally all it's about, is these people who are super emotionally hurt
Mm.
that seek this treatment out after they find out that it's helped a lot of people who were also suicidal. It goes to vets with extreme PTSD. And very similar. You guys have heard about like people microdosing mushrooms, like they not like tripping on mushrooms, but just
Yeah.
microdosing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to plug this into the Akashic records, or what you believe the Akashic record is, maybe these things are a way to subconsciously connect to that as lesser beings. I don't think that if the Akashic records are real, I don't think that humans built it, or at least not our form of human.
No, I don't believe it'd be us. I don't know. I'm hoping I'm not jumping off subject here, but with just like the accessing of the Akashic record and how people can go about it, we can talk more about that on how to access it here in a little bit. But something really fascinating to me. Have y'all ever heard of the 100th monkey? Which was they had placed some monkeys on one Pacific island, uninhabited. They put the monkeys there, and they were feeding them sweet potatoes. And they would just dump the sweet potatoes out on the beach, and the monkeys would eat the sweet potatoes, sand, grit, and all, until one of the young female monkeys in the group, she carried her sweet potato one day to a stream of water, and she washed off all of the sand. She eventually showed her mom, and her mom started doing that, and she showed it to one of the others. And before long, the entire troop of those 100 monkeys, they were all washing their sweet potatoes before they would eat them, which is really interesting. But the more interesting part of it is that on another island that had monkeys on it that was miles away, where they had absolutely no access to them, they started doing the exact same thing, washing their sweet potatoes before they would eat them also.
So that's awesome. And I'm just still kind of collecting my thoughts from jumping on so quick, but like I know that when you start researching the records, it gets into Sanskrit, if I'm not mistaken, from when I was researching it. So the Sanskrit language, and you guys may already know this, so apologize if you do, but the Sanskrit language was the most visceral human language ever created, and it was created around 12 vibrational sounds that they would make. And we always talk about frequencies and what various frequencies can impact. We've talked about anything from opening portals to levitating objects, but apparently this Sanskrit language was basically, the way I understood it, there were 12 vibrational sounds. 6 were considered like the yin, and 6 were considered the yang, and dark and light, and they had different purposes for based on what they wanted to do with them. But that, in more modern history, I believe this was in the 1800s, maybe early 1900s. There was a it could have been the BBC in England. there was a large news organization that sent a reporter to go spend time with these monks, and I can't remember whether it was Tibetan monks, but it was like these monks who study ancient practices, who had studied ancient practices, and they did their mantras and everything like that. So he gets in with them, and after I don't know a month, the monks decided that they liked this guy, and they let him into like a secret. I don't want to say a meeting, but it was like a chant session where they, would basically do the equivalent of Om or like throat singing.
Mm-hmm.
And he captured on film, which was then seized when he got back. He captured on film them levitating a boulder. They were all sitting in a circle around the boulder doing these, mantras and chants and throat singing, levitated the boulder, and he documented it in his journal that the boulder kept floating up and up and up and eventually hit the ridge of a higher mountain above them. Wow. And yeah, he documented all this. Everything was seized when he got back, which makes makes it believable to me.
Well,
Right.
I've recently cracked into a new area of Tartaria, and it kind of plays into exactly what Tully and Stephen both said. Like, the way Stephen explained it, it sounds like a combination of consciousness. Like they can tap into each other's consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And with that consciousness, they can do amazing things like wash sweet potatoes, which I don't do. I just throw them in the microwave. but this is a possibility that this records, I can't even say it. I'm not even going to try to.
Potato.
Yeah.
Akashic.
These Akashic records. It could be just like a stream of consciousness that it's a little bit of everything that everybody has ever known that we somehow tap into. And it's quite possible that the ancient Tartarians and like the ancient civilizations, well, we basically know they had more enlightenment than people have now, and they did practice using hallucinogenics and things to open their third eye a lot more.
I think that, think about this for a second. There's a reason that all of our food and water is poisoned today. And I think the reason for that is to keep us on a lower vibrational frequency. You're constantly filling your body with stuff that goes against nature, pretty much, I guess is a good way to put that.
Yeah. How unhealthy is fluoride for the pineal gland?
It's horrible.
It destroys it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's even old shows. I can't rattle them off. It might have been a really old Kubrick movie where, we talk about disclosure. They actually disclose in that movie like the big agenda on fluoride.
Yeah.
I can't remember which Kubrick movie it was, but that could have been one of the reasons that he isn't with us anymore. But,
yeah.
Well, and here's the thing too that, kind of, I don't know, resides in my mind, I guess, is the fact that, like you say, anymore people being able to access things that they did 100 years ago is just almost non-existent. But you tend to gravitate towards those people who do tend to, if not be able to experience it, at least give it consideration. I don't know if it's real, but I won't discount the possibility. So I think a lot of it is just opening your mind to the fact that something else might be out there. Because
I believe 100% is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I just can't get
I believe it's real too. I guess, if you think about it, kids always have way more spiritual ability than adults.
Yes.
And I don't think it used to be that way.
Right.
When everybody was growing their own food and everything was pure, outside of, Coke and cocaine, Coke and Coke.
That's when it was Pierce, buddy. Freedom.
But pre-industrialized food is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Pre-industrialized water, when
Mhm.
everybody had their own well.
Yep.
And now it's to the point where even if you have your own well, they're wanting to tax you for it.
Yeah,
But
I have a well right now, and they've gotten city water. And I mean, understand, I live 12 miles outside of the city, but they have gotten city water to within 1 block of us. But so far, and I remember when my brother, he lived about 2 hours from me, when they came through and put county water where he lived at, they would not allow him to continue to use his well
yeah, that's
because
crazy.
he was going to keep it just to like water his garden and things like that. And they're like, no, it has to be completely disconnected. You have to pull the pump.
Isn't that like complete bullshit though, in a way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course it is. I mean, because I know what I've put into my well as far as financially and, physically and everything else.
It's not even that. It's like we pay taxes on this damn land anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Let us do with it what we want to do. Like,
Yeah.
Well, even that, I don't know. I mean, it's so much. Like people were trying to, throw down over taxes on tea back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and now you get taxed on your income. Every time you use that income, you get taxed. If you buy, a tangible instrument with that money, if you go to resell that, you're getting taxed again on top of that.
Yep.
So it's like you're getting taxed like 6 times on your money.
that's the reason you always you deal in cash. Don't let cash go away, people.
That's
no,
that's absolutely true. If we go to all digital, that's like human captivity at that point.
So I'm going to make this statement, and if I go missing, y'all can say, what happened. I would never answer yes when on my state taxes. I don't know whether they do it anywhere else, but in Mississippi, they ask you, did you buy anything outside of the state this year? And if you put yes, they will put a percentage of tax on everything you list, and you have to pay that. So my answer is hell no. I buy everything in Mississippi.
I don't buy anything more than 10 miles away from my house.
That's exactly right. But as much as I hate Amazon, I've got enough of damn Amazon boxes around here to build a fort out in the yard to play in. So,
there's a book that I bought. I think I got you a copy of it, Cecil, about the meeting your straw man.
Yeah.
There's a book called Meet Your Straw Man that talks about a lot of this. Like, basically,
don't go to court and try that. By the way,
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that's like sovereign citizen type stuff. But it talks a lot about just the taxation, basically how you're ripped off from the time that you're assigned a social security number.
Oh yeah, now they assign them at birth.
Like your social security number is your straw man, pretty much.
No. Yeah. Even though it may not be right, they will still throw you directly in prison. So,
hey,
what's up, Alan?
Yeah.
But
I also heard that we live under what's it called when we're out at sea? The law they have, maritime law. That
maritime law.
Technically, we're under maritime law because when you go into courthouses, they had the gold fringes on the flag, and that's for the Navy.
Yep. I agree, Joe, that, Amazon definitely has its place, but I sure wish there were another alternative because, I would, it is what it is. I hate big business.
The problem is like, even between the biggest competitors, they're all still owned by BlackRock. Like it's people act like there's not a monopoly. There's absolutely there's a monopoly on everything. Like,
but okay, I'm gonna call bullshit on that because I work in the design. I work in design, and I would love for fonts to be a monopoly, so I wouldn't have to go through 87 flipping Helveticas to find the one my customer used.
I have a question. Is your company a company that's traded in any way, like on stock market or anything? Okay.
That's why
they might not be owned by Vanguard and BlackRock.
Literally any publicly traded company, BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street is going to be your top owner.
And guess what?
And then they own each other.
Yeah. all of them have secrets on each other, so it just floats back and
Oh
forth.
Lord, we're hitting the ditch.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
not
This-
no,
this
we're going
this
to
is-
the other end. Let's go to the Akashic record.
This is the
This is
the
the
Weird
bad
Awakenings
stuff.
after dark kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
But how does CERN tie into all this?
lot less
Maybe-
cursing now.
maybe that's what they're trying to dip into with CERN is
Well, you know who owns CERN?
Black Rock.
Black Rock.
That's true, but I guess I mean, I don't know what you guys came across when you were reading up on it, but when I was reading up on it, it was basically like it exists almost like in between dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So CERN makes perfect sense to be able to access something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's very well that's what they could be using CERN to try to do, because they always talk about awakening the old ones and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, awakening ancient knowledge.
You remember? I'm assuming you guys watched you remember those Percy Jackson movies?
Yes.
I'll never watch them.
There was like a library of knowledge that would appear in the desert in those movies,
Mhm.
like of every knowledge ever obtained.
Right.
And that's what comes to my mind because it was like only the worthy could see it. Like only the worthy could access the library. And there were also guardians of this library, like spiritual guardians that would defend it if,
Mhm.
you know, like as a second layer of defense if they didn't think you were worthy.
Right.
Or tried to steal it.
Right. And, you know, and that's the thing too, is, you know, you hear of all of these other cultures that talk about having access, hey, Mark, to, you know, different places, you know, to different branches of knowledge, as it were. And most likely they're all the same place. But who's to say that, and I'm going to jump off in this hole, and I don't do it often, but going back to CERN for just a second.
This is a perfect topic for
It
CERN.
really is.
But
Like,
it is, because you look at it as, okay, Stephen, that's enough. As, okay, what happens when they get all the knowledge? I mean, because that's what is there, is all the knowledge, you know, and you don't want that kind of knowledge in just anybody's hands.
Was it Solomon that had all the knowledge?
was
Yeah,
it?
he was the wisest man.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Was Solomon.
I think that would drive you crazy. Like if you
Right.
just had like an instant flash of like everything there is to know, you would
It's
go
hard,
crazy.
It's hard. It's hard for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if the Akashic records is somebody, I don't know, maybe through CERN, maybe somehow they're tapping into that. Is that what Project Looking Glass is based on?
Very, very likely.
Don't they have what in Looking Glass wasn't there like an actual object where they could see so far into the future?
Well, Looking
Yeah,
Glass.
that was mine.
Was that it? Go ahead, Stephen.
No, go ahead with your thought. I mean, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, I think what he was talking about was
There is definitely an item that would allow them to see so far into the future, and that's one of the things that they think is whatever shadow government or you know whoever's pulling the strings on everything, they have this item, and they're tweaking things based on how far they can see into the future.
Mike,
the crystal skulls.
I have a cabinet full of crystal skulls, and I don't think they work well.
The crystal skull I got me really drunk.
yours made in the presence of Einstein.
Okay.
Yep, they do have crystal skulls at the liquor store. That's true.
Really?
Yes.
Yep,
Yes, they do.
There's a vodka that comes in a crystal skull.
And I'm going to tell you, if you
And
have not seen it, go to their website. And I don't know and you're probably aware of this, but the movie Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd's father was actually a paranormal psychologist. And a lot of the research and stuff and information he got for the movies came from his father's research. So,
Really?
you know, he's really tapped in you know, to other stuff. And when he was doing the getting the marketing and everything and getting ready to create Crystal Head Vodka, it's actually triple filtered through Herkimer diamonds. You know, and
Yes.
he on the website he goes through the whole process and everything. And vodka is my drink of choice. And I have to be honest, I'm a fan of the Russians. That's about the only thing they've got that I like. But I was so in love with the concept of Crystal Head Vodka that I was so disappointed when I tried it because the Russians have them beat.
It's pretty.
It is pretty. I've got one full of crystals in there, as a matter of fact.
That's good stuff.
But yeah, and like I said, it is good. But you know, there are other brands that I've had that I like better.
But I
as far
like
as
to
taste.
I like to support Kentucky and their liquor, and they got one called Rain.
Yeah.
That's made in Kentucky, and it's very smooth.
Yes.
And it's $10 a fifth.
Well, we've got down here, we've got Tito's and we've got Cat's Head. Cat's Head makes a honeysuckle vodka that literally, when you're a kid, when you pull the honeysuckle apart and get that one drop,
That's awesome.
that's what it tastes like when it hits the back of
Really?
your throat. It does. It is phenomenal.
You know what? The further north you go, the less honeysuckles there are. I
Really.
don't think I've seen honeysuckles since I lived in Manchester.
There's none over here, and we're only 16 miles away. It's weird.
Well, like so many other things, you know, I also remember Maypops growing up. You know, they were everywhere. Hey, Mama.
Hi, Mona.
You know, I mean, they were all over the place, and I literally had to buy one a couple of years ago just to have a Maypop in my yard.
What was it? There was something else. We had an old tree in the back that died when I lived in the country, but it was called a mulberry tree.
Mm-hmm.
And mulberries were so much better than blackberries. It was crazy.
Oh, yes.
Because they're like long.
Yes.
Too.
I used to have one off of my back porch when I lived in Yazoo County that you could pull one limb down. It was that high, you know.
That's what I
without having
love.
to get a ladder.
Honestly, I love that we are all like country people, just so we can talk about this stuff like mulberries and gooseberries and rhubarb, rather not rebar.
And back when I was a youngin', you know. Yes, I've seen Maypop tires too.
Maypop. I've got one right now.
In celebration of it snowing tomorrow, here.
It was 70 degrees today.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow. But the persimmon seeds this year say that we're going to have a bad winter.
Yeah.
Ooh, you got have a lot of spoon.
Yeah. Well, it was bad. I think it was. So there's one that is cold, one that's a lot of snow, and one that's like not too bad, I think. And we got the extremely cold and a lot of snow.
Do you think that if we could access these records, we could actually determine if it's going to be a really bad winter for sure or not? Like on a better scale than what the weatherman does?
It's whoever's writing the farmer's almanacs.
That's right. And I still buy my farmer's almanac every year.
You know that was started by a serial killer.
Really?
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin.
Ah, okay. Yes, I heard all about. I think we did a show one night about Benjamin Franklin.
All the bones underneath his house. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. No, see, I literally do not own a coat because
there's a reason that someone who wasn't the president's on our money.
Yeah. on one of the biggest denominations that's most frequently carried.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think they should rethink all of them.
He's on the largest denomination that you don't have to go to the bank and specially request.
Well, do we even offer $500 bills or $1,000 bills anymore?
I'm sure you can get one if you go
I
ask for it.
think you can get up to 1,000 is what I was reading relatively recently, but they quit making above 1,000 thousands. But you still have to be real special to get those thousands.
Really?
Yeah.
You have to probably have at least $1,000 in the bank, which I do not.
Yeah.
Well, when we were young lads, me and Cecil used to get $2 bills pretty often.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's all the ATM would give us at that place.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
going to. I'm not even going to guess out loud which establishment you were.
It was not a fine establishment.
When I found that, I was very upset.
Mhm. Okay, guys,
It was actually
It's
nice.
I'm giving you a link. I'm giving this one to everybody. They actually offer a class at Udemy on reading the Akashic records.
I might actually attend this,
Mhm.
honestly, because I kind of like to start getting into more stuff like this.
Mhm.
My stuff is more like hardwired to what's the real tangible life, like cryptids, the serial killers, things that I could actually run across without trying too hard.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've the
I hate
only
to try. I hate trying. and such.
well, I mean, like I said, you know, I've got experience, or you know, more so not as much the last few years, but you know, with traveling and projecting and everything like that. If I have been, I'm not consciously aware of it. You know, it's possible I could have gone, you know, deep enough to have gone and just not been aware when I came back to. But I do remember at one point being in a place between lives and, you know, talking about what I had learned and what I wanted to learn during my next life. So I don't know if maybe that place and the Akashic records could be connected in some way, because wherever this place was, I mean, it, and the only way I can describe it is white. I mean, you know, it was just everything around me was white.
Well,
and
wouldn't they
everything.
describe it as like almost like a like not books, but it's almost like sound.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you think it's something that may be tied into what we would think of as heaven? Because, like, when people die, you're supposed to gain all knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, think about the Matrix, like how they can just upload information to their brains.
hmm
Like maybe it's something like that, you know, where I'm not saying we're to that point yet, but you know, every culture had their mystics, like Native Americans and everybody.
Yeah.
And these mystics would dedicate their entire lives to gaining knowledge from beyond.
hmm
And there were different facilities, such as ayahuasca and other things,
hmm
to help them do this. And
Yeah.
I think where there, it's like we always say, that where there's smoke, there's fire, right?
Right.
They wouldn't be doing that for no reason for generation after generation after generation.
Right. And one thing I remember reading recently when I was, you know, getting ready for tonight was the way that somebody put it, that what you were just saying, it kind of locks into, is everybody can access their records, but it's a matter of finding the right frequency.
Mhm.
You know, so whether that's a meditational frequency or just, you know, being able to tap in or something, that it just, when you started talking about that and the fact that they had used that specific language,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the thing. Like that language was built solely on frequency.
hmm
And I just imagine, like, if none of us spoke English and we were just trying to figure out how to communicate, and we're like all throat singing and stuff, like, or like
Mhm.
using certain, you know, like frequencies, like
Right.
it just, but they're like when you look into the Sanskrit stuff, like I said, there's light and then there's dark, and I think we know that today. Like a lot of our mainstream music
Mhm.
are lower vibrational frequencies on purpose.
Right. Well, that's when I'm ready to go into a meditative state or whatever. I usually go and put on music that's in the like that, what is it, like 9 something megahertz, crap, what's it called? My brain just went dead.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I can't rattle it off either, but
Yeah, but it's certain ones that have a certain tone that put me in that mindset and help me go deep enough to actually, meditate or travel or whatever.
Well, I was telling, it might have been Cecil that I was just talking to this randomly about, but there's a J. Cole song. It's the one, I think it's called She Knows.
Mhm.
And he sampled that song from a band in the 80s. I don't know the band name, but that band sampled live recording of the Jonestown Massacre
Yeah.
for that song. So subconsciously within that song,
Mhm.
you can't like audibly hear it, but it's literally the Jonestown Massacre. And I think they do that with a lot of songs today and I've heard that a lot of your music will be layered with like, it could be a
Subliminal.
murder. It's just something brutal.
Right.
That's what I do in all mine.
Good to know. Well, and here's something I wonder too. I remember this was a huge thing for a few minutes back when I was, a teenager, was subliminal messages.
Back
The government was putting them in everything. The schools were using it. You'd go to the drive-in, and there were layers and layers. And I've actually seen a couple of documentaries over the years that kind of touch on it too. But how much of what we see and listen to is layered with other things?
Oh, that's Project Mockingbird. They quit that when they got found out back.
Yeah,
they
okay.
promised that.
They
That's
promised
right.
it anymore.
The flicker
Exactly.
rate, the flicker rate of a TV.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
not actually,
so the TV was, I think they had the technology for TV for like 15 or 20 years before they released it to the public because they wanted to get the flicker rate right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called television.
Mm.
So
Hadley was not here at the beginning. You were experiencing what we call a Mandela effect, my friend. But television tell you what to do.
television.
Yeah.
Yes, subliminal messages are very powerful. And, so I often wonder, like I said, and I think that's probably a lot of the reason that I skipped through some stuff. Go ahead. You just had a moment.
Yeah, it just hit me. So for everybody listening, if you didn't know, Freud, our great psychological hero, his nephew was basically, I forget what they called him. He was like the czar of marketing, pretty much. Like he was also into psychology and knew how to make people look at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was huge into that. And then he got involved in a lot of like conspiratorial things, which we probably don't need to talk about here. But all that said, flash forward, and one of the founders of Netflix is actually like his great grandson or something like that.
Floyd's great grandson, yeah.
So the co-founder of Netflix is literally related to Sigmund Freud, and nobody wants to talk about that. And they produce all their own content, and you get to think like, I mean, that's literally the direct lineage from like the flash rates on the TV, those government operations, you name it. And now it's evolved into this, global phenomenon because he knew how to make you look at it, right? Like it.
and to me, that can go back to color psychology. Goes right along with subliminal messages.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Looking at it.
Like I said, we use it all the time in design,
Yeah.
I mean, because what's going to calm them, what's going to get them excited, what combinations to avoid. I mean, you're taught that in class. So,
and I know we always compare like sports.
That's kind of what it does.
We always compare.
Y'all are thinking about the Hallmark Channel in Lifetime. Now stop.
Sports being equivalent to Rome, right? Like give them bread and circuses, and they won't rise against you. But it's more than just sports.
Mhm.
It's the whole construct.
Yeah.
Like this whole system is designed to keep you, fat and happy and eyes away from what's really going on, and at your home glued to a black screen. And, I mean, it's really like a dystopian nightmare if you think about it. Like it's like some Black Mirror stuff.
But
And
if you think about what was that movie? Ryan Reynolds guy. He played Guy.
Free guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's us. We're walking around. Everything's good. Everything's fine until you finally get a little bit of knowledge or a little bit of insight.
And I want to go back to what Tully just said about staring into a black screen, and similar to Black Mirror stuff. But what is a TV when it's turned off?
it is a Black Mirror.
It's a Black Mirror.
And think about this cell phone evolution. 10 years ago, every cell phone looked different. You had your flip phones, you had your soft gray screens, you had those ones that were like that looked like a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes, a BlackBerry.
Yeah. And you had 42 different kinds of cell phones.
Mhm.
Now they're all Black Mirrors.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you're
Dun,
saying
dun, dun.
don't scry is what you're telling me?
Well, I'm saying that
Cecil, how many different drinks do you have on that desk?
I had my regular coffee, then I had my coffee with a shot of Seagram's or 5, and then I got water.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say I've seen 3 different vessels. My bad. Okay, I'm sorry, Tully.
so the level, and I'm about to really go crazy right here. Like this is gonna sound crazy what I'm about to say.
Full speed ahead.
But we know that our phones are listening to us. We just don't know to what extent these things are listening to us, because there is a belief out there. I'm not saying I subscribe to this belief, but I'm saying
But he does.
that it's interesting. It's interesting,
Mhm.
but basically that these Black Mirrors are portals also for things to monitor, like spiritual things to monitor people. Not just the face value of entities, like governmental entities listening to you, but spiritual entities.
Mhm.
The same way that like you can scry in a Black Mirror and see
Mhm.
things.
Yep.
What does it go? The void looks back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. And
Yeah.
I mean that absolutely. That's the reason my Black Mirror. I have this little dresser that has a door on the top of it, and I have a set of crystals around a Black Mirror in there. It stays in there covered up when I'm not using it.
I hardly ever look in mirrors anymore. Like even when I get ready to go somewhere, I think that's a leftover from years of abuse of psychedelics. But I just assume I look good enough, so I just leave and I don't even look to check myself out.
Well, they say not to sleep with a mirror that can see you. I've always heard that.
Yeah.
But I mean, and also with the phones listening to you, I don't think they're even listening to you anymore. I think it is more that they're intercepting like your spiritual thoughts, because we've experimented with this. We've not talked about something before and just thought about it, didn't say it out loud.
Yeah, new experiment for everybody listening. This is your homework for the next week. Pick one thing in your mind randomly, like the most random extreme thing that you can think of. Like as an example, you could pick like red balloon tied to dog.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Like something super specific, and give it time, and you will see said thing in some form of like advertisement
I will say within a week
or video.
Yeah. And
so think of something and let's see how many people see that thing over the
And
next week.
and I think it's one of two things. It could either be that it is something that's just catching your spiritual energy and what you're reading your thoughts, or they could have the most advanced AI algorithms ever that know everything about us and just assume that we're going to think of that within the next week.
Yeah, Mona, that's how this actually started. Because we were like, okay, it has to be either catching our eye, so like you're looking at something, or you're saying it out loud somewhere and you just don't realize it. That's why we made this experiment. Like, just think of a super specific thing. Don't tell anybody. Make it as random as you can. And even when you do that, especially if you're on TikTok, you're gonna see it. I promise.
Yeah, I didn't believe it either till I did it, and I was like, "Well, shit." Exactly.
Well, and that I'm the same way with that, because I have literally started to type and typed in one letter, and what I was going to type pops in, and it's something totally random.
Algorithm.
But no, totally unrelated to anything. Because I'll just be sitting there and random off the wall thoughts will pop in my head, and I'll go, "Ooh, I need to research that."
Because I'm like, okay, it could be one of two things.
So either one that I think is terrifying.
The AI is so powerful. Like it's so smart now that it can literally predict your next move. Like, just go through millions of scenarios and predict the most likely outcome.
Yeah, they've been working on that for quite a few years.
And like when we was talking about awakening the old ones, they're trying to do that with CERN, but there was a cat from Google talking about they was trying to do that with quantum computers. So it could be the same deal.
So it's either that or somehow there's enough waves in the air now to where it's messing or meshing with your brain electricity, like your neural electricity waves. Like that's the only other thing I can think of.
Okay, I'm gonna go here then.
Tinfoil hat.
And this all plays back into this records too, because
that's exactly where I was going. I was going to say, so maybe CERN has been, more into this than you think, and there's literally somebody out there that is seeing all of this and is not predicting your next thought. From everything I've ever read, the records have your every thought.
Yeah.
Including the potential future thoughts.
And it's completely possible that Google
with
their quantum computer,
we just added a new layer to this.
Have touched into these records. It's completely possible that Google will try and awaken the old ones, touch into these records, and
what
have
if they
the AI of it.
So what if they have our most powerful AI jacked into Looking Glass?
Exactly.
Like an AI that's so powerful it can do every single person on Earth, billions of scenarios for each person, and look into the glass.
And what does Jeremy call the generator that they're trying to put at the bottom of the ocean? Cold fusion generator. It could be ran off that.
Or there's the phone or whatever is capturing your thought before it ever completely leaves your head.
Yeah.
What if that's part of the Looking Glass?
Yeah, exactly.
Could be, but y'all were talking about having a thought and things appearing on your phone. A few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. We were talking about a specific Bible prophecy, and while this conversation took place, he got a phone call. It was an unknown number, so he went ahead and he answered it anyway. And nobody would talk to him on the other end of on the other phone, or whoever called him. He kept telling us, said, "Don't tap my phone." And basically all we heard was just some clicks.
Nice.
It was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been our brothers at the Alphabet Station.
Yeah, beware those clicks. Watch everything you say when you hear those clicks.
That's the reason we ended up having to call pot freaking tomatoes when I was a kid. You hear those clicks over the landline, like, "Hey man, I'm coming to get 2 tomatoes, man."
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's it. Hey man, do you have a quart of oil I can come pick up?
How about a pound?
No, Cecil. We get pounds of tomatoes. We get quarts of oil.
That's how they always catch you. You get too high, and you're like, "Man, can I get a quarter of some tomatoes, man?"
The Crown. I haven't watched that one.
I haven't watched it either. I don't believe in watching anything with royalty in it.
Well, then I'm not going to send you my biography.
It's 100% going to be propaganda of some sort.
I think that the records are real. I think there's some form of knowledge that we can definitely access, and that's why
Probably is.
That's why when you meditate, whether it be through prayer or traditional meditation, that you feel close to a higher version of yourself, almost like closer to the creator.
And if you think us talking about this stuff is wild, we've actually calmed down. We was about 3 pages from going into a solid aluminum airstream in the middle of the woods and talking about this on ham radios. For a little bit.
Oh yeah, like this is just to clarify. This is all vanilla topics. Like this isn't like
it's the after show that gets deep.
Yeah, tonight it's been more like that.
Yeah.
Lisa, what little bit I might be able to share with you on this right here, if you want to try to access the Akashic records, is you need to try to get need to try to be a little bit tired, but not quite able to go to sleep. And then
that's all the time.
You get in a relaxed state and just kind of.
I can't get in a relaxed state. I'm always tired, but I'm always.
But basically, just stop.
That's true.
Very true.
Yeah, and that's a possible way that you could access that. So
none of us are here to tell you what's real or not. No, we're just saying, look for yourself.
I believe it's 100% real, because if you look at the things that people were able to do back in the day, even when it comes to the meditation and the arms that you were talking about, the throat singing and the vibrations making things levitate, like that can all play back into everything in history that we've been lied to about.
Have we ever covered, did we cover Rasputin at all?
Rasputin?
Yeah, well, we didn't. We did it on Mysteries, Murder, and Mayhem one night, but
Gotcha.
we didn't get much into that side of it. It was more about the murder.
We talked about him on Wearing the Folk, totally, but only his appendages.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually did a research and speech on him in college.
I did about 5 hours of research into that topic when we talked about it.
There's a modern day Rasputin. Maybe we should do an episode on him sometime.
That cat does numbers.
Yeah, the Grabavoy. I think his last name's Grabavoy.
Grabavoy. That's a very good name.
Really?
It's like grab a voy.
Oh, okay.
V's Invader.
All right, totally off subject, but kind of following in on that. I had an OBGYN doctor once that was named Phil A. Hooker.
Totally over
Gospel truth.
Boy, I thought he was talking about Disney Channel or something.
No, not quite the Disney level, but this guy apparently served prison time. I think it would be a good episode because he served prison time for bringing somebody back to life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the person came back as a zombie and was killing people. So,
it's really interesting if you read into it. I forget the exact name of the practice that he does, but basically uses numbers and like chanting them.
It is numbers.
And like cures, like diseases and things like that.
Well, Landa, I have to get in my digs every once in a while too. So, You notice the guys got quiet as soon as I said that.
I happen to know what that means. Obstetrics and gynecology.
There you go. Good job.
Cecil just got done seeing his last week.
Yep. He said I'm all clear.
Okay, guys. Let's wrap it. As always, I love my Friday nights. Because, where else could I go for all of this?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yes, it is. All right. Next week, we are talking about shadow people.
Yeah.
Nate
So-
Nate is still holding on coming on.
I'll be
Okay.
stoked.
Paranormal investigator Nathan Elwell may be joining. I will not be here next week.
How dare you?
Good.
However, if Nate's here, it'll be awesome. Like, he has so
Yeah.
many stories. He's done a ton of investigations and is definitely I would say a master of his trade. He's very thorough in his investigations and stuff.
Yeah, I like Nate.
Yeah. All right. Well, look forward to it. And thanks everybody for joining us. And until next time, stay weird.